Hi, welcome back. Um, so today we're doing a recap of what I read in January as well as kind of a plan TBR, what I hope to read in February. So jump right into it. This month, the month of January, I started with a very short novella, The Lord Sorcier, by Olivia Atwater. It follows her Half a Soul book. I really enjoy Half a Soul, but the novella I just wasn't a big fan. I don't tend to like novellas. I just don't think this one was necessary, so unfortunately, um, I did not enjoy it much. The other thing I read was The Once and Future Sex. This is a non-fiction. I listened to the audiobook. It was quite interesting. Had a lot of information about women in medieval times, which I thought was a very unique perspective. Then I also continued the Mercy Thompson series. I read the ninth book. This is Fire Touched. Mercy Thompson is an urban fantasy. If you don't know it, it follows Mercy. She is half indigenous. She's a coyote shifter, and she lives in a world where there's fairies, werewolves, vampires, witches, quite a lot of supernatural. And in that world, recently the fairies have come out to the world to say, like, hey, we exist, we're out, we want to be part of your society in a way. And they get placed on reservations, and each book is kind of its own little story. It's not like too much of a continuity. There is a overall continuity, but nothing too ingrained. It's very much its own story in one book. This book, I really enjoyed it. Probably one of my favorites in a while, just because we finally get a lot more continuity into the main plot line of the series. So it felt nice to advance. It's got a little bit of romance, but it's very, very subplot. But yeah, if you enjoyed urban fantasy, this is probably one of the best I've read. Next thing I read was The Night Rain by Jen Williams. This follows three characters, kind of a vampire-like being, a witch, and this rich lady. They all kind of come together and start looking into some artifacts that were left in prior wars. There's just weird things going on. It's a bit hard to describe without giving away too many spoilers. This is a book where I had a really hard time figuring out what I wanted to rate it, because at the beginning, for the first like 50 to 60%, I was like, I really was wondering, like, what is this book about? There are so many different elements. There's like vampire-like beings, there's spirits, there's witches, there's aliens, dragons. There's so many elements to the story that it's hard to put it all together. And I didn't know where it was going. But then towards the end, when everything starts to come together, I really started enjoying the book a lot. It started to all make sense and coming together in a way that I wasn't quite expecting. So based on that, I really enjoyed the book. I just think the actual experience of reading through could have been better. I am quite excited for the next book. We'll see how that one is, but I think it'll be better than the first one. I do like Jen Williams' writing. She's very creative, and I can visualize the world quite clearly, so I did enjoy that. I think some of her dialogue was felt a bit unnatural to me, but overall, it was good. Next book I read was The Undermining of Twyla and Frank. It follows, obviously, Twyla and Frank, and they're both marshals of this kind of magic land, where a lot of poachers come in to steal resources, and they've been partners for many, many years. So they find another dead marshal and dragons, and they kind of have to figure out what happened, where did these dragons come from, because we thought they were extinct. So they do that, and at the same time they kind of have their romance start up. One thing I really enjoy is that these characters are a bit older, so they're in their 50s, 60s. which I think a lot of fantasy tends to focus on much younger characters. So it was nice to see people who, have adult children, grandchildren, and seeing how they handle situations and how they view themselves and their past experiences. So I really enjoyed that. I do think the plotline could have been better. I think it focused a lot more on romance, while the first book in the series had a lot stronger plotline and romance. This one very much felt like romance first, which I enjoyed, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. So really, really enjoyable, and there's a third book coming out, I think, this summer. I'm pretty excited about it. So now moving to February TBR. First book I have, and I've already started, is The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. I rewatched the first and second movie over the holidays, and so I was really inspired to continue reading the series. It's fun to be able to compare the movie to the books because I grew up watching the movies, and now I get to see the original material and how it differs. I think the tone of the book and the movies are very different, but it's still, the main themes are quite similar. The characters, I think, are well preserved in the movie adaptations. So yeah, so something I'm quite enjoying it. It'll probably take me a bit of a longer time to get through it, just because I think it's a bit more slow pace, but still very enjoyable so far. Next book I'll be reading this month will likely be Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I just got my hold from the library, so it's ready for me to read. I've heard a lot of good things about this book. People seem to really love it. It seems to be a little bit of a weird book, bit weird story. I don't know too much about it, but I think it's one of those books that's better to go into with less expectation, less knowledge, and just experience it. So really, really looking forward to that book. It's one that I've been recommended before, and I think I'll really enjoy it. Next book that I'm planning on reading is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This is the second book in the Emily Wilde series. A third one is coming out this February. So really looking forward to this. It follows Emily Wilde. She is a professor at a university, and basically in this world fairies are real and people know about them. And so this is her field of study. She studies fairies, and it's her going out in the field, finding information about them, and it's really fun. It reads very much like almost a textbook or like an academic paper. It feels very scholarly. Some people don't love that. I've heard some complaints that they find the main character is a bit boring, or that the writing style is a bit hard to get through, but personally I really enjoy it, and I think it's very fitting. So this is another one that I'll be reading. Next book I'm planning to read is Silence Fallen. This is book 10 in the Mercy Thompson series. I really like just throwing one of these books in because they're so quick and easy, and at this point it feels very familiar because I read so many of these books. It's just something great to have kind of as an in-between book. Next book I'd like to read is Lady of the Lake. That'll be after this. I'll only have Season of Storms to read, so it would be nice to make progress in the series, and then after I can either pick up Season of Storm or I might read The Return of the King, just so I can kind of wrap up and finish one of the mini series I'm currently in the middle of. So those are my priorities for the month. I'm also entertaining the idea of reading maybe a romance or something like that because it's February and Valentine's Day is approaching. But I've mostly been in the mood for heavier fantasy, so I don't know if I'll get around to a romance. If I do, it might be something by Vari McFarlane. She's one of my favorite romance authors. I also have a few Bridgerton books. That might be another option. Another book that I'm thinking That's not a priority, but that I'm keeping on my radar is Goddess of the River. This is a retelling, reimagining of this tale about the goddess of the river and her son, who's a prince. I believe he has a curse, and it's really their story over many years as mother and son, and this destiny that's following them. So it seems pretty interesting. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, nor have I read a lot of reviews. I don't really know what to expect, but it sounds quite interesting. So that's another one that I'm entertaining for this month. So we got quite a few books this month to read. I don't think I'll get to all of them, and I might not stick to this list and, pick something else too. But these are my priorities. Let me know if you've read any of these. What were your thoughts? Let me know what you're reading this month. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. And I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.